This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
You know you've made it in the world of indie heavy metal podcasting when the great Eric Rutan from Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Hate Eternal, Ripping Corpse, and Alas does your promo for you. Beyond flattered, I must say. The interview subject that I have prepared for you on this installment of the show is Markus Großkopf. He's the bassist in long-running German power metal outfit Helloween. The catalyst for the chat with Markus is the release of the band's second self-titled album. So they released a self-titled album way back in the 80s. This is the second one, but it's not the same album. It's a different album, new tunes. It'll be out on June 18th, 2021, and it is an absolute cracker. I'm not going to give away too much in the introduction because I want you to have a listen to what Markus has to say throughout the chat, but there are two former members that have returned, and that's why this album is so special. In addition to talking about the album and the reunion with the two former members, as many of you who are long-time listeners to the show will know, I certainly go there, and Markus and I cover a whole bunch of ground on other topics. So here he is, Markus Großkopf from Helloween. Markus, bass player extraordinaire, how are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear, yeah.
All right.
How's things going? All things considered, mate. You're in your 40th year in the music industry. So how has things been treating you recently, especially with COVID?
Well, life's treating me very good. But then, even in the COVID times, but in this crazy times, but then I'm privileged in a way because we can stand it. We can take it a little more before we start working again, and then we got the record out and all this. It's just that we cannot go out touring, For me, it's okay. I mean, I would like to go, but I can survive. But I got loads of friends playing in small bands, playing top 40 music. They need to go out They need to go out each weekend to get their fees, to pay their rents. And if they don't play, most of the time they work like in bars and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. But even that was closed. So they have like two possibilities, and both of them are canceled. So some people are really, really in danger.
Do you think
not
Merkel's...
only for the virus, also for like their income and their daily life routine?
That's the issue that has been most overlooked and is now most pressing in the Western Hemisphere, so across Australia, the United States and Europe, is that these leaders like Merkel have locked down populations, and it's very bad in Canada at the moment, I understand, and people can't earn a living. So it's forcing them onto welfare.
There will be a big change. Loads of bars and shops are going to be closed after a while, And there's probably a big change of other people jumping in, doing something different, whatsoever.
Well, when it comes to you guys, you've made a good point already, which is that you are firmly established. New bands, I think, are going to find it extremely difficult to gain a foothold because when it comes to heavy metal, it must be played live.
It is still a rock and roll live business.
Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have an album, and you've had plenty of great ones, but your live performances, that's the true bullpit. And that's the yardstick in which heavy metal and rock fans determine whether or not a band is worthy. And you know that because God knows how many gigs that you've done, but you've perfected the art. So you're now 19 albums deep and into a 40-year career in the music business under the Helloween moniker. You're known and adored globally as the band that unlocked the combination of the speed and fury of thrash and the melody of 70s hard rock greats such as Deep Purple. And you've been there since the very start. So to get this far and to have made a career playing heavy metal, do you feel a sense of, is it relief that you could do it, or is it accomplishment?
is I don't know. It's just like now. It seems like with the years, it of course becomes like a natural process you're doing. It's your life, and you don't know anything else anymore. So for us, it becomes it became a very, very natural. And natural part of life, doing this and creating this, because you never do anything else, but still I'm thankful that I'll be able doing it. I should be God should immediately strike me with a lightning if I would ever complain about what I'm doing. But still it becomes a very natural part of it, like the touring life is very, sometimes it can be very exhausting for somebody who does it for the very first time. It can be very, very dangerous health wise, but once you're used to it, it's a part of your life, and it becomes a lifestyle, hanging around on airports, talking to people, sitting down, waiting for a gig, and then writing songs, going into the studio. It's just like as normal as you do your daily job, just because with a lot more variation, but it feels like right. It feels like it's a part of you. And you're lucky when you find something, even if you don't do music. You're very lucky when you find something to work on that feels great. I know also a lot of people doing a job just because they need money, but they don't really like their job as much. That must be a cruel life, and I can understand when people feel that it's very, very exhausting and getting problems with it.
Yeah, well, you get it, Marcus. Then, if you from the sounds of things, that for most people, life is a grind, and you're leading the dream. That's certainly a dream that I had as a kid that never materialised. But I didn't think it would, because it's 1 in a million to become a professional bass guitarist, like what you've been able to do, and you are the 1 in a million. But look, when you're touring, I mean, like in a band, you're more or less a professional tourist. To your point there, you're in airports and you're in transit lounges. You're on airplanes, in hotel rooms. Was the 2017 tour, did that tell you that you could get back together with your long-lost comrades, Kai Hansen and Michael Kiske, and that you were able to tolerate each other on that level? And was that the catalyst for you guys then making the decision to come together for this self-titled album?
This was like very well prepared. It wasn't an idea calling them up and asking them, should we do some rehearsal tomorrow and then we're talking about a tour the day after tomorrow. It was like it needed preparation. Years before that, when Kai came on tour with us for the Hellish Rock Part 1 and 2, those 2 legs, it felt already like he's never been gone before. So we were talking about it a little here, a little there. The idea kind of grow, and we gave us a lot of time to let these ideas kind of develop in our heads before we asked Michael, And we came to the conclusion it would be kind of stupid after all those years, because we knew Michael has changed a little. We were talking to him, not about reunion, but then in private. Here and there, because we met him on a festival with Avantasia. We came to the conclusion that it's going to be stupid not even trying it, just give it a try. That's why we started off with a tour and not with a record, not with an album. On tour, you can be together on stage during the show, and if for some horrible reason something is not working, you can go back to the hotel, do the next tour, do the next show, and then saying goodbye. That can be possible on tour. Thank God it was not that way. Thank God the understanding was great. We felt like very familiar after a while. Everything was very fine. But if you find out in the studio in the middle of a creative process that you kind of not able to work together, or something is in the air, you never know, then it's the more harder part to get the record done. Having problems in the middle of the creative process in the studio is very, very rough. when you have to finish the record. I mean, that's why we started with the tour, finding out, okay, this is cool. With that feeling we created on tour, we can easily go into the studio working on another album, you know. That was the idea, and it was working out very well, I have to say. It felt all very right.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, Kai Hansen was on guitars and vocals back, and he left in 1989. And Michael Kiske is the vocalist who left in 1993. Now, this always happens. Jason Newsted was called the new guy in Metallica. Andy is occasionally referred to as the new guy in Helloween, even though he's been the group's bloody singer for 27 years. but this is what happens. But you've now got three lead. I don't know. You can sing, so you've got three lead vocalists. Plus, you've got very capable backing vocalists. So, how did you agree on who was going to sing what on the new album?
I really don't know. That was very, very interesting part of the production that I was not involved into the decision who's singing what part and who's singing what song, whose singer's going to sing here or there. I was just doing the bass guitars and then listening back. We were all creative parts of arranging and composing and pre-production that whole thing. But when we started off, there was never clear whose singer is going to put on the voice on here or there. You know, I was very, very surprised listening to the mix, because I didn't know how they decided. I mean, they hooked up with the producers and there's three singers, and who else was there? I was not there when they decided, so it became a very, very big surprise to me listening to the very first mix, you know.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what that says to me is that you were trusting the process.
Of course, you cannot do. That's why you have producers. That's why even this time we had a co-producer, Dennis Ward, in there. He was also there when we were like arranging stuff, thinking about the stuff, and we were throwing ideas to each other while he was there, and he was kind of sorting out what's the best for the song. Because you have a lot more ideas with 7 people. Suddenly, you if you try something out, there's 7 people throwing notes at you that you're supposed to try out, you know. Until your head is steaming, you know. And they're all good ideas, but there must be somebody saying, all right, this is the best for the song. This is very good for a bass part or a guitar part, but for the song, we need this and that atmosphere or this and that note, because there's a vocal on the top and maybe there's coming some solo stuff to it or some guitar lines. So it all needs to be sorted, you know, in a way. And there you need to find the best notes that you can hit for the song, you know, and not for the individual part in a way. That was kind of complicated. It makes your head steaming, but it was a real interesting creative process.
So it doesn't matter whether you're a band working on your debut or a seasoned veteran such as yourselves working on your 19th studio album and God knows how many other releases in between. The process of determining what fits where never changes, does it? To your point.
It never. That's my point. It never really changes. But having 2 more people in a band coming up with loads and loads of ideas doesn't make it easier. It makes it even tougher. But it's in the end of the day, it's all worth it. You know, listening back to the results, showing you that we did the right thing. You know.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've got to ask: did the album leak? Because it's not in my Nuclear Blast portal, and I had to search online for Skyfall. But I did find a YouTube upload of the song that you wrote, Indestructible. Now, I'm assuming it's a song that you wrote, Indestructible, because I've got the bio. But do you know about that there's a version of Indestructible on YouTube?
Oh, what version of it was? What, like a demo tape version or?
No, it looks like, look, because I haven't heard the album version, I can only assume that it is, but I'll send it through to you soon via...
all right.
Yeah, hang on a sec, I'll just send it through to you now because, I was a bit... God knows, these things come out, don't they? And you think, okay...
yeah, well, I don't know where they got it from. I mean, we had like an online release Weren't you there? I don't know who.
No,
who
I wanted to be, but I've got young kids these days, you see, and it's very hard for me to.
You can never tell how these things are coming together, and you can also not prevent things like this. It's just like an open net, and you cannot really waste your time looking for the one who does it, because you will not get any information about it, wasting your time trying with no results coming out of it, I mean, things like this just happen. It's the internet. It's uncontrollable. It's even more dangerous than the virus that we have now. in a way, sometimes.
You're not wrong. It's just shit because you guys work so hard on what you're doing, and then it's look. If this is the cut, I just sent it through to you, by the way, via Skype there on the messenger service. But if this is the cut, man, it's because I've only heard the two songs. Man, this album here is going to be one of your strongest in many years, dude.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We were trying to, we were not trying to copy the Keepers stuff or anything, but Kai came up with that song, with that epic song idea, and we thought, why not giving it a try, Why not trying to make the best out of it? And he just came up with that killer track. We would be stupid not to do this,
Yeah. Who came up with the Skyfall video concept?
That was like Kai's idea combined with the producer's arrangements and all that stuff, Because it's of course the lyrics are giving you an idea, and the little guy crashing down onto that Area 51, and it gives you an idea, and that's what they were following,
Yeah, it's a great video, by the way. And do you guys? How important over the years have videos been to what the band's philosophy is all about? Because you've always had pretty bloody good videos as far back as the 80s.
I think it was even more important when this MTV heavy metal hot rock thing in the 80s was born, Nowadays you put it's a part of the great rock and roll show. It's a part of the internet. It's a part of the whole promotional concept, I think it's important to have to show the people, all right, especially right now where there isn't any chance to go out to the people playing live. At least they have something they can watch if they like, and until we come back on tour, and there's a little lyric video coming out. There's probably more lyric videos coming out for a couple of more tracks, and I think it's very, very important in times like these, where people wait for you, where people waiting to go out to the shows.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute
or
must.
A little hello in between.
Yeah, it is, and it's something that people like to. We all scroll through our phones before we're going to bed, and it's pretty cool to see a video like that from you guys, just to help you sort of go into a lullaby, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's good. I know what you mean. It's cool. I like it a lot.
I love the album artwork by Eliran Kantor too, because I don't know whether that's a male or a female, so I'm going to make an assumption here it's a bloke. But he worked with Hate Eternal, Eric Rutan, represent, fantastic musician Eric, and Max and Soulfly, amongst many others. But what inspired you to go with Eliran for the album artwork?
I think some band member had the idea, and then he's been contacted through the management, and he gave us a little scale of what he think it's supposed to be, or we gave him the keyboard stuff, and we were telling him about what we think we had in mind with that kind of Skyfall related thing with the wings and all that kind of stuff, how it can be combined with the keeper and the Helloween concept in general. And I think he did a classical great job. It looks like that old fashioned kind of picture, and it's very traditional in a way. I like it a lot. Very classical piece.
It is, and I've just changed my artwork for the podcast too to a more classically inspired piece of artwork, and I think it marries up very well with what you guys are doing. So, so awesome choice. But I'm a bassist, and I love your bass playing. By the way, I've got to say I am influenced by you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll never forget when I first heard "Where the Rain Grows" back in the day, and. Steve Harris is one thing. He's got he's massive influence, of course, and inspiration. But I felt like as though when I heard what you were doing, I loved your use, and I still do love your use of fifths and octaves, particularly the octave works that you do, because I don't think anybody else truly does that in heavy metal. A lot of people think I've tried to do it in, I wouldn't call them metal bands, but new metal bands, this sort of thing, and a lot of people said, it sounds too poppy or sounds too much like disco, but you do it so beautifully. So when you're writing a bass line, do you have something in mind before you start playing? And, you've obviously got your own technique, or there's the old classic thing about writing for the song, but you're Markus, so you can only be who you are. So when you're adding a bass line to a song, tell me what goes through your head.
It's like, first of all, you gotta listen carefully to the songs, and also to what the singer's doing, what the other instrument are doing, and you gotta find the space for it. You cannot play too many notes where they are a lot of notes already, or you follow them by harmonies through what's possible between 2 or 3 octaves or something, or the song sometimes is telling you, like the Mass Pollution kind of song. This song are more here like a straightforward kick in the ass, right in the face type of thing, right? So the song inspires you for what it really needs, and it's actually asking for something that it fits. And there's very different songs from Waiki, for example. He's coming up with that crazy ideas, with that crazy notes everywhere, and that gives me the possibility to hit many notes in a row that's still fitting his harmonies and still fitting the songs, because he likes his songs very, very busy, which is always like very challenging. Not easy to find out what's cool for the song, but it helps a lot to trigger my inspiration. It's always like not easy to find what the song really needs. Sometimes you also can play too much. It sounds good for the bass, but it doesn't really fit the song, It's a very, very thin line of playing something very cool that's jumping out a little, where people can say, listen to that, but you got to be careful that it's not overtaking the whole song, It still needs to fit the song, I guess. That's always my aim.
Yeah, and you've always written very tasteful bass lines, it must be said, but you've always found a way to be heard, which literally can be said for about 3 or 4 other bass players in power metal. The bass in power metal and that style of music that you guys are doing is typically so marginalised it might as well not be there. Same thing with death metal, but you found a way to be heard. So do you put that down to your influences or even the choice of bass? Because I'm pretty sure you're a jazz bass player, aren't you?
Well, the bass guitars I'm playing is mostly, of course, precision and jazz basses. I played a very old 64 jazz bass for the faster stuff you can hear on the record. Okay. And I played a 72 precision bass on some of the songs that are not that fast, and it cuts through very well. I had my Sandberg basses that I was playing over there as well, and this combination just does it. We tried all my basses, and those 3 bass guitars just came out as like the best. And well, I had my influences. Of course, I remember when I started off listening to metal, when the very first Iron Maiden record came out, I of course remember falling off the chair when I heard what Steve Harris was doing. Later on, I became like a big Geezer Butler fan, and Flea is a great bass player, Marcus Miller are very great. But
awesome. Yep.
Then I was listening back to the stuff John Entwistle was doing with The Who, and I became amazed not only by what he was playing, also by the way he was setting up his sound. It was so aggressive and so macho type of sound that I thought, wow, this is something very, very special. So he became my favorite bass player of all times,
Yeah, he's in a league of his own, John Entwistle, because of course when I was growing up I just thought The Who were an oldies band, the band that your parents listened to. But since the YouTube generation has come into play, since we've had access to YouTube, I mean by that, I've been able to see a lot of the live performances. Yeah, he's incredibly aggressive, but I think a lot of his sound is made possible by those alembic basses. If he didn't play alembic, I don't know, that hard overdrive that he's got, because it was fairly rudimentary back in the 60s and 70s. He could certainly shred, there was no doubt, but you like a lot of bassists shred, but you can't bloody hear what they're doing. With him, he's almost as prominent. Actually, I will say he's as prominent as Pete Townsend. It's a very unusual setup in a band that more or less came out of the ashes of the Beatles era.
Yeah, it's amazing how he doesn't really need a rhythm guitar or something. It's just him and the guitar player. And by the way, Pete Townsend is a hell of a songwriter, Phenomena and Tommy is just like great stuff, It's so written well, and there's space for the bass actually, I love it a lot.
Yeah, same here. So these days, definitely.
There's many other bass players I like Marcus Miller and all those guys. They're playing amazingly cool, amazingly tight. I'm just more of an aggressive heart, but those players are really, really on the track. But the sound John Entwistle created was amazing. Amazed me because he was like very aggressive and macho type of bass. Here I am, eat this, I
get it.
I was really impressed.
I get what you're saying. One of my favourite bassists is Nathan East, who performed on Footloose.
Yeah, he's a great player.
My God, isn't he a monster?
Oh man, this is something really, really different. They come from a rather very, very different jazzy, how do you say, progressive type of music. I'm actually coming from the punk, directly jumping into the heavy metal. That background is more aggressive in a way.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Like nice and sleazy from the Stranglers and all that, when I heard that the very first time. That was my kind of where I'm coming from. And then going in, I'm not that jazzy type of bass player, although I find it very interesting and very cool listening to it and very groovy, but I'm not that kind of player. I was trying to combine some stuff like this into the metal, which is sometimes like John Myung does. He's doing a very, very great job, because he's definitely coming from that fusion jazzy kind of music. And I'm trying to do something really interesting, but actually my roots are more in the punk and in the rock scene, so to speak.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Jean-Jacques Brunel from the Stranglers, because I actually interviewed him. And,
right.
Yeah, he's my God, as a bassist, his material is some of the hardest to replicate that I've ever tried, because he I think he uses a pick, doesn't he? But his bass lines, he's very similar to not Pete Townsend, John Entwistle, in that he was one of those guys that I dismissed as a young fella. And do you remember those bass guitar magazines that used to be released at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s? They used to come with an instructional CD. Do you remember that?
No, I haven't. I never read this, and I just don't know it.
Oh, well, what it is that they used to come with an instructional CD, and more often than not, you'd have guys like Jean-Jacques and also Bruce Foxton from The Jam as well. And I mean, these guys were monster players, but a lot of it was buried. Or in Jean-Jacques Brunel's case, it definitely wasn't buried, but I found that I was able to get into the guys that I've just mentioned, and also the big one, Phil Lynott, and his bass lines.
Yeah. I like him a lot because not only for his bass playing, he's also, I call him the most romantic songwriter in rock and roll, because he can write all this hard rock kind of metal stuff, typish stuff, but still being very, very romantic in a way he does his songs. That's a combination I kind of love a lot, what he does with Black Rose and all that stuff, and Renegade, and all his a lot of his stuff is very romantic in a very, very heavy way. That's a good combination.
Yeah, I've had a chat to Scotty Gorham, of course, from Thin Lizzy and Black Star Riders these days about him. And look, my opinion is that Phil Lynott is the greatest rock and roll and heavy metal frontman of all time. He just has a very special quality that I just don't think has ever been replicated.
Yeah, and I still wonder. I mean, the Thunder and Lightning was like more heavy than the other albums in a modern heavy way. And I was thinking about what this guy would have done when he was still alive. He was like a killer on songwriting, a killer on the bass, a killer as a front guy. It's just so sad. It's just like,
It is, and I've said this a few times to people. You get kind of emotional when you think about how young Phil was when he died, because I'm now almost 10 years clear of the age that he was when he died, and you think, man, to your exact point there, how much great music did we miss out on?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, and I think it's a shame, but that's life. So that's life in rock and roll. So close, and in general, it's so close to death in a way.
It is. Hey, look, I'm going to change topic, because here's a subject that I've asked guys like Schmear and Destruction and guys like yourself that have been around the block a few times, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, so here goes. When Nirvana broke in 1991, grunge took over the rock and roll universe. Did you get any pressure to change the band's sound back then?
No, I don't really. We changed sound because of Nirvana doing something very, very different, and everybody was just like jumping on that track. And suddenly heavy metal wasn't, and long hair and leather pants and spandex pants and all that kind of heavy metal routine was suddenly pretty uncool. I really don't blame this guy for what he does, because what he does, I liked the first records. I thought, wow, this is kind of really cool, because it was like very punky in a way.
Yeah.
And because I know that kind of attitude coming from the punk, and I thought there's something coming reminding me of the punk attitude, kiss my ass, I'm doing what I want, and I'm wearing what I want, I'm playing what I want, and anything else I just don't care about. That was that attitude, and he was trying to bring across, I guess, and he did it very, very well. And so I kind of loved that record too. What I just didn't understood was just like people go for it, and then saying, heavy metal now is not cool anymore. Because for me, it was like, my feeling was more like, there is space enough for everything, Why not listening to this? Why you still like the old stuff, You don't put it in a bin just because something else is coming up, I don't think there was a wrong attitude for bringing up a new style of music or whatsoever what he did, which was cool, and I liked the record, but I never understood why people went for it by blaming something they were living before, I always thought there is space for everything, being open to music.
I was a teenager back then. It was ridiculous. It was like all these great bands such as yourself. Australia is very different to Germany, as you can appreciate. More trend driven in Australia, and of course, Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, they all have merits in their own right. But to your exact point, it doesn't have to become, their popularity doesn't have to come at the expense of all these great heavy metal bands. And I was a big thrash head, right? So when you couldn't get Testament albums or easy. You couldn't find them. You actually couldn't get Testament or Exodus or even underground stuff like Possessed. You could never find. You had to wait for the reissues to come out. But it was a very strange era, and I think a lot of young people don't understand how strange it truly was. Meaning, young people who weren't there.
I think a lot of them got confused because a lot of people told them, "No, I never had long hair. I was never listening to that kind of funny heavy metal music, you know." But they were just like, you know, trying to be something else, which was wrong. I mean, to me, music is music. If it's good, if it's cool, then why not listening to it? But give space to everything, you know. I mean, I'm a great Stray Cat fan as well, and I just the time being off now gave me the chance to buy an upright bass and rehearse that stuff a lot, you know. I was trying. I'll never be on that level, but at least I try, and I would never probably use it for Helloween, but to get the chance, to get the time to rehearse it, just playing around for myself, it's just so much fun, and it's a different technique, and it increases my musical understanding, you know. Why not making space for everything? Why creating a new thing by killing the old thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But I've got to say, There were two countries in the world that never let go of the heavy metal flame. It was always strong. One was Mexico. The other one was Germany, your home country, Germany. Saxon, I checked the records here, and I couldn't tell you what year it was, but it was the early to mid-90s. Saxon played something like 9 or 10 dates in the country when they probably couldn't have bought a ticket to a concert in England. Yet in Germany, Germany remains strong, true, faithful, and extremely loyal to heavy metal. So do you have a perspective on why German fans are, if you like, the true keepers of the flame of diehard heavy metal?
Because they once they have a band they're proud of, you know. They had Michael Schenker and the Scorpions and a couple of more bands like this, and once they're proud of something, they never probably let it go, you know. Even though the shows we did there, they weren't as sold out as before, but there was still a lot of people with it, you know, and they just kind of keep the faith once they grab something.
I've never had anybody explain it that way, because I've asked that question a bit, and that makes so much sense. Because as you know, AC/DC are from Australia, so that type of balls to the wall rock and roll has always got a home in Australia. But I hadn't joined the dots. Now, I've spoken to Michael a bunch of times, and I've had to explain to Michael, because I don't think he realised that he is one of the true godfathers of all heavy metal that came after him, because of his influence on Dave Mustaine and James Hetfield when they were starting Metallica. Do you get what I'm saying?
That was who?
Michael Schenker.
Michael Schenker, I definitely know what you're talking about. I heard him with UFO, and then starting off his own career, which was amazing. The first couple of records, you know, that was the time when I started off. Coming from the punk into slowly over AC/DC into Michael Schenker, UFO, and that stuff. He's getting out of UFO, building his own career, Michael Schenker Group. You know, that was something that was, you know, that was never there before. It was a time also when Ozzy Osbourne did his very first solo albums. It was a lot of bands that you know from before broke, and there was parts of them bands doing their own records like Ozzy Osbourne and Michael Schenker, and they were very, very, very good music. It was just like a very great new beginning for us, you know. That was actually the time we started off doing music, and that kind of lifted us, and that kind of, you know, gave us some inspiration.
Yeah, I've had a chat to Bob Daisley about his time in Aussie, because he wrote those albums. People don't necessarily understand that, but that was his songwriting, his and Randy's, and Lee Kerslake too, I've got to say. Ozzy didn't write music, and he didn't write lyrics either. He just came up with a couple of melodies here and there. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about one of the most seminal albums there in Blizzard of Oz and I also love Diary of a Madman, especially the track Little Dolls, because it's got that soul, funky soul bass line that Bob put on it. You know, so much music came from that afterwards. A bit like Michael, isn't it? It's they're like the Genesis chapter in the Bible, if you like.
Yeah. He's a very good bass player, Bob Daisley. I loved him so much. I saw him a couple of times live when Ozzy was with the Monsters of Rock shows around and stuff like this. It's just fantastic player, you know, playing this old wooden Fender precision bass.
Yeah. I saw him back when he did the Living Loud thing back in 2004 with Jimmy Barnes singing. Yeah. And he had Steve Morse on guitar
Jimmy
as
Barnes,
well.
I like Jimmy Barnes. He's coming from Cold Chisel, right?
Absolutely, Cold Chisel.
He's got a killer voice. When they did songs like K-San and stuff like this, cool. Very good. And then he started his own career. I got a couple of records.
Well, you get it, brother. Yeah, I play that music.
Nice,
That's
very nice.
I play in a bar band, and I've got to play a lot of those songs. And songs like Bow River and K-San, to your point there.
Bow River is a killer, yeah.
Yeah, Forever Now.
And Bow River gets the feeling that song never stops. It just carries on forever.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's very well done.
There's a killer live video when they played rock. Is it Rock Palast? Is that what it's called? Sorry, I'm an Australian native English speaker. So, but the video program that was in Europe, it might have been Germany or Holland. I can't remember. I think it was called Rock Palast. I don't know whether that rings a bell, but anyway.
Rock Palast, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They were on that. Check out that video of Cold Chisel playing on Rock Palast on YouTube.
Oh, all right. That must have been in the 70s, right?
It must have been, yeah, incredible performance. Though. Just Ian Moss. Ian Moss is just such a fantastic guitarist, and such a killer. Like they're an Australian pub band. You see, they're just an Australian pub band doing what they do in a pub, but on a very big stage.
Yeah, but I like the band a lot, and I like when he came out with his own records. I like them too. He's just got that killer voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jimmy
which I
Barnes.
like a lot.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then. I'm going to change gears for a sec again. What are your thoughts on Chameleon all these years later?
Well, Chameleon sounds very, very different from all the other Helloween stuff you know. Of course, everybody sees that. And at the time, we were in the weird state of band members are changing their minds, and we had little fights, and those little fights get bigger and bigger, and different opinions about what Helloween's supposed to be and all that kind of stuff you have in a band, not agreeing, but still being in the studio, having to finish a record, you know. But in the end of the day, you know, after all those years, it's kind of very, very interesting to have it in the back catalog, you know. And we even survived our own Chameleon, you know.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it falls into the same category as a Cold Lake or an Elude Divinum Insanus from Morbid Angel, in that I don't understand why fans are so critical, you know. I mean, it's not... Yeah, you go. Sorry.
I can understand when you're a big fan of like the Walls of Jericho and like the first mini LP we brought out, and then right after you listen to an album called Chameleon from Helloween, then it sounds like two very, very different bands, right? So I can understand what actually Walls of Jericho fan didn't like on the Chameleon album, you know. But as a musician, it's kind of interesting still having it now in your back catalog, you know. It's very different, of course. It was confusing.
Yeah. Look, I wasn't a fan of the band at the time that it came out. I became a fan a little bit afterwards. But I've listened to the album a couple of times, and I've got to tell you, I find a lot to like about it. But I think that I understand, like, fans have expectations when albums are released. It's just these idiots who weren't around back then to understand what the context of that release was about, who still carry on about it now. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It might be a great record from a band not be called Helloween.
Yeah, well, look, you're entitled to experiment and do what you do. Yeah. So here's another question. But here's another question for you on a similar line, because, you know, Queensryche have got their Operation Mindcrime, and I think that it can be a bit of a burden, you know, like, so is the Keeper of the Seven Keys, the concept and the album series, can that be a bit of a burden for the band?
Well, everybody will compare you to this 2 albums, your lifetime, and that can be all right. You're always scared if you do like a long song like Skyfall or something, or in the past albums with Andy, we had songs like 7-8 minutes long, not related to the Keeper story. You'll always be compared to that, and people might think, oh, well, they didn't reach the level from the Keeper albums. But then we really didn't try to do this, you know. We tried to do a real cool song, but then still be related to that, which is, it's like the ghosts you were calling in a way, which is okay. You got to live with it, but it's very cool albums. But then you got to live with it and try. You set yourself a level that you got to fulfill in a way, you know. And this puts the level very high, so you got to reach this. It's not easy, but it's a challenge in a way.
What's your favorite Helloween album?
Oh, I don't know. It's very hard to say after all those. I mean, one of the albums that impresses me the most, not only from the music, but from the time we were stucking in, was like right after Chameleon. No, was it right after the Pink Bubbles, or right after Chameleon? The Masters of the Rings.
Oh, yeah,
when
that's a great album.
Saying I'm coming to Helloween, but then we gotta be Helloween, and we gotta give the people the impression we write Helloween songs, and we should go back to what Helloween can do best. So that album was kind of fresh and well done, you know. It kind of gives the impression that we're back on track again, you know, and that had a big impact on me.
Gambling with the Devil was an incredibly strong album from later in the band's career as well. What do you put that? I don't know. What would you call it? A resurgence? Would you call it that? But you know what I'm saying. Like, it's rare to have a band come out with one of their strongest albums, like 15 or 16 albums into their career. But you guys did it.
Yeah. It's been a logical step, which we did after what we did before, in a way, I would say. And you can always tell people you're going to do your best album. You might think it's the best album, but it might not be the best album. But this time everything went well, you know. You cannot really force it to be like this. We just write those songs and hoping that everybody likes it, hoping that the best is coming out of it, you know. It's just always a challenge to try your best and to make the songs as interesting as they can be, you know. It's not easy, but you always try.
You just keep trying. That's all I think you can do, especially with such a legacy as what you guys have got. I mean, what else? What other options are there?
It's just trying to give your best, and that's what at that time it was like the best we could deliver, you know.
I'll make this my final question. Yeah. Look, I'll make this my final question for you.
And the final question is called, where's the G-spot?
Well, brother, when you find it, you tell me.
Helloween doesn't know yet after all those years.
Well, I guess this is a bit different to the G-spot, but look, there are some diehard fans in Australia. I'm sure you know that, because Australians do travel a lot, and so you probably met some Australians in Germany and on the road and the like. Yeah. But has Australia?
Always when Buckingham is coming up, we meet a lot of Australians here as well.
I reckon you go to almost any metal gig, you're going to see like, you know, not a lot, but 2 or 3 Varkin t-shirts in Australia. I'm talking about, like, some people travel and come back.
It doesn't need to be at a rock concert. You see them in train stations and in supermarkets already.
Yeah. But you guys have been part of Varkin's success. I mean, you've appeared there many times.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, I have a special relationship because I'm living quite close to it. It's 1 hour from my house. And I was there when the nowadays backstage area when this was a field where the stages are, you know.
Okay.
Where the stages were back in the 80s or late 80s. And I was there with a couple of bands, even tuning their guitars just to be there.
Nice, yeah.
Before we were playing there.
But I need to ask about Australia, though, more specifically. But have we been in important territory? I know you've got important territories everywhere, but would you classify Australia as an important place for Helloween?
For me, it was interesting to play in the same bars, in the same club where AC/DC, Cold Chisel, and Jimmy Barnes were playing at when we were there for the very first time. And I knew some of the bars were very old. They must have been there. That was kind of special for me in a way.
There you go, yeah. No, that's nice. Yeah.
It's and at the moment it's very tough. Distance is really there is no longer distance for us. But if there's a chance, I would love to come back. You know, we've been there. I think we've been there twice, and coming back there with the old guys, you know, with the old new guys, would be mucho fun. And I hope this is going to happen for the next year, or maybe even the year after that. Hopefully, everything becomes a bit more easy again, so we can come over, saying hello, drinking some ice cold ones, doing some great shows. You know, everybody would love it, I guess.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you down here. There's heaps of fans here. You see Helloween T-shirts around, brother. They're here. People are here, and they recognise the crucial importance of the band.
We try to do our best. I think from Japan, the distance will not be as far, wouldn't it?
No, it's just up the road in a global sense.
In a way, it's 9 or 10 hours. It's just up the road.
Well, it's on the same. It's on the same time zone as us. Yeah, it's on the same time zone as.
It is. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll try.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that happens, man. I know people want that to happen, and as I say, man, you've met them. You've met the Australian fans, and no doubt they've said the same thing, man. So, fingers crossed that happens in the near future.
All right, I hope so. I'm really looking forward to it.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. I've long looked forward to having a conversation with you. When John told me that I'd be talking to Markus from Helloween, I was stoked because I just admire your bass playing so much. So, and what the band's accomplished too, man. From a band from Germany, keeping the heavy metal flame alive for so long. You've done a lot, Markus, and I hope you get that sense.
You play a nice precision bass, don't you?
I play Music Man basses.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had one.
It probably doesn't suit metal, though, a lot of the time. Not a lot of, because it's got a specific tone.
Yeah. It might be. You know, I played one and it was working very well.
I've played them for about 22 years now, and I've never looked back. I used to use, I think Warwick are from Germany, aren't they? I used to play a Warwick, but it just sat perpendicular to my body, and I couldn't play it. And I switched to Music Man, and I've just never looked back. You know, 5-string and 4-string, I love both. Yeah, they're awesome.
All right, there you go.
There it is, yeah.
All right, then. Hope to see you there.
Absolutely. I'd love to catch up for a cold one, as you say, mate. So, as I say, I'll be in the audience regardless when you come down.
All right. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks, brother. No worries. Talk to you again. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was the bassist from Helloween, Markus Großkopf. Thanks so much for tuning in.